Welcome to At the Forefront, where we explore the groundbreaking innovations and developments shaping the future of aging. We're hitting the road to showcase how older adults are embracing change, staying active, and thriving in their golden years. Here's your host, CEO of Forefront Living, Tim Mallett.
We're very excited to have two very special guests with us today. Leeza Gibbons, Emmy Award-winning daytime talk host, journalist, producer, actor, advocate, which we'll talk about in a moment, and Jay Allen, former Voice contestant, country musician, also rock musician. And Leeza and Jay will be talking to us today about something they have in common, in particular, a passion for helping others. So Leeza, Jay, welcome to At the Forefront. It's so good to have you with us today.
Thank you.
I said during the intro that the two of you have a connection, and the connection really is both of you had a parent, in this case your mother's, who had Alzheimer's. And it's interesting, having spent time with you and talked to you, how the two of you met and how your two worlds came together. So who'd like to tell us that story to start?
This is Jay's magic. He is an empath, I think, who sees the world through this creative energy that creates beautiful music that touches lives. And that's how it touched me. So before I ever knew Jay as a person, I knew that he was important in the space of cognitive decline and memory loss and the families that were struggling, because his messaging was so pure and it was so authentic, and a subject that's so tough for people to talk about. His songs would make it easier to feel that you're not alone and that you're part of a community. And then lo and behold, someone who's got the world on a string creatively and with all this music success, he chose to give that energy towards this space of helping people feel more lifted, more empowered, and raising money and awareness for a cause that, as you said, Tim, touched both of our lives. That was wildly inspirational to me. And so I was almost like a groupie wanting to meet him. And
that's so weird, because I watched you on TV growing up. We're each other's groupies.
Well, I would happily be so, but everyone who deals with the Alzheimer's community knows about Jay because he's made that much of an impact. So I said to our program officer, we need to get into business with Jay because he could really touch lives here. And I reached out and called his manager and got, hi, it's Leeza Gibbons here. What's up with Jay? Would he be willing to? And I told my story, and it was a mission connection. Wouldn't you say a mission connection?
Yeah, it seemed easy, like-minded.
Like-minded.
Yeah. And you come off so endearing and so sweet, so that was an easy yes already.
Well,
but yeah, then learning your story of loss and hardship, I connect with people like that, you know. You say I've chosen to, put my efforts and my musical ability towards this space, but it found me, I moved to Nashville 12 years ago, and I did what every aspiring artist was doing, trying to do something for myself. I remember laying my head down at night, and I just felt like I was missing the point until my mom got sick. And I wrote a song for her out of heartbreak, brought her on stage and shared our story, and that filled that void. As hard as that was for me, and as painful as it still is, it gave me a purpose. Now it's not about me anymore, God gives you gifts, you gotta use them to make the world a better place.
Your mother was very young.
Yeah, she was. I was uneducated as to what dementia was, nonetheless, Alzheimer's, nonetheless, early onset Alzheimer's. They called it early onset for us because she was only 51 when she was diagnosed, and it took her life in 2 years and 9 months. So it happened very, very quickly. I guess that's a rare thing we found out. So it was devastating, absolutely devastating to lose her that quickly.
And I think the other connection, as I hear you talk, and Leeza, we talked actually last evening, and you said once your mother was diagnosed and once that became a reality, you knew what your path was going to be. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
For me, it was like a calling. and like a moment of clarity. That's kind of what you described. Oh, yeah. There's a moment where you know life before didn't make sense. And I loved my life. I love my life now. But I was busy hosting a talk show and raising my kids, and life was perfect, and I couldn't make sense of all of that. And I wanted to make it better for my mom, for our family, and ultimately, my mother is the one that gave me, as your mother gave you, a direction without even really knowing it. But I had been a reporter and trained as a reporter, and my mother said to me when I would cry and say, "Mom, I don't know what to do, and we're going to figure this out, and I want to help you, and I know we're going to meet the right people, and just hang in there. We're going to get a cure for this thing." And she said, "Honey, you've been a reporter. Tell this story. This is now the story that you should report on." And it made so much sense. It was right there in front of me. And it saved me from a lot of angst and emotional darkness. It gave me something to do. And I think she knew that. Mothers are like that, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they're very intuitive.
You know, the diagnosis, you know, finding out that you have Alzheimer's and knowing what that means. We talked last evening as well about your mother, and at the time that your mother was diagnosed, we didn't talk about Alzheimer's, dementia, or things like that very much, but your mother chose to do that. Can you tell us about that?
I would love to tell you about my mother's courageousness, because she was fearless in so many ways. This woman had watched her mother, my granny, also disappear and die from the same disease. So she knew where she was headed. Yeah. She knew what her life was going to look like and feel like. And she was able to name it and claim it in a way that I don't know that I would have the grace and courage to do. But she ultimately did a public service announcement where she said, "My name is Jean Gibbons and I have Alzheimer's." And this was 1990 something. And it was so stigmatizing. It still is, in ways that are unacceptable, in ways that you're helping break down so beautifully.
Oh yeah.
But it was really a moment of so much pride for me as her daughter, such an instructive moment for me to want to be that kind of a woman who can own your life. And I tell my kids, I do everything I can every day not to get that disease, but if I am dealt the hand that she was dealt, I hope to play it as gracefully as she did. It was really something. And unlike your mom, who declined so fast, my grandmother, my mother, was a dozen years of saying goodbye.
That's worse.
I think there's no easy way out of this illness. There's no easy way out.
Well, Jay, you talked, when we were first meeting and talking, you talked about that moment when your family realized something was going on with your mom. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I'd already moved to Nashville. I've been in Nashville for a couple years. I'm from a little town in Iowa, a little blip on the map, and I'll never forget my dad called me, and my dad rarely calls me, I'll be straight with you. And so I picked up, and he said, I feel like I need to tell you this. I'm obligated as your dad to let you know what happened this morning. My mother had gone to the same place of work for years, and he said she pulled over and was crying. Said, "I don't know where I am, please come pick me up." So that's how we found out about her diagnosis at age 51. And then the next phone call was, "I feel obligated to make sure you get time with your mom before this progresses any worse, because it's speeding up quickly." And so they drove 10.5 hours from small town Iowa to Nashville, Tennessee. And she walked in the door, and I try to remember how she looked at me when she was healthy, because that's an undescribable feeling, that how a parent looks at a child. We all know what that's like, but it's embedded in my mind how she looked at me when she was sick for the first time.
And the two of you did something very powerful. You shared earlier that you have a wonderful song. It's called "Blank Stare." The words are incredible. It's very meaningful. but you were in front of a group of people that didn't really understand those words. Do you want to tell us how you brought meaning?
Yeah, so I wrote that song, and some important people heard it, and God started moving, and so we started touring, sharing that song and sharing that message, and I was opening up for every big country act you can think of, and we happened to be opening up for Jake Owen when this moment happened. But previous, I'd been in situations like clubs, and kids are there to party and to drink and enjoy themselves, and I just felt like I was not getting through to them sometimes, and I thought, it was a conflicting thought, like what if we brought Mom on stage and showed people what this is, and break down that barrier, and in front of a couple thousand people opening up for Jake Owen. I remember we got to the end of our set, we put on a very fun party show, and I looked side stage and I had my mom and my dad side stage, and my dad just nodded, and my mom was all smiles, and so she met me halfway. I brought her out, put my arms around her, and she put her arm around me, and I told our story in front of all these people and sang that song, and that was the moment where I realized I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Someone took a video, and they put that little video on their Facebook page, and it got 1 billion views over time, and kind of just broke the internet, I guess. I don't think you can get any more human than that. It wasn't planned. Somebody planned it.
Leeza, I've heard you say more than once that things are meant to be, right. And the two of you came together. I think these two women, though they didn't know each other, seem very similar, and I think we all can be grateful for their courage and their, your mom's willingness to go out on stage, your mother's willingness to do a PSA and come out and say that she had Alzheimer's. I had the opportunity to hear you sing Blank Stare today, and if I would not have known that you've sang this song, as you said, hundreds of times, I would have thought that it was the first time you sang the song. I felt, as I was watching it, that I had walked in on a visit between you and your mother, and how deeply personal that is. And can you talk about singing that song and that experience for you?
I used to feel overwhelmed by it, like it was like a curse, almost. And now it's begun to, over the last couple of years, feel like a blessing, We decided a long time ago, we're going to be the last people to leave the building after we perform, after a show. And so I have a merch booth, and people will line up, and it's not really about selling shirts or hats or slinging koozies. It's more so about the people having a safe place to tell their stories. And I'll never forget, a young guy came up to me, had to be high school, and he said, because you told your story on stage, I feel like I can finally tell someone I go home after school and I take care of my mom. And that became the reason, and that's why every time I sing it, it's less and less about me, and it's more and more about who could potentially hear it, But how you said it, a visit with Mom,
that's good, right?
That's cool, because I miss her dearly, but every time I sing that song, it feels less like a burden and more now like she's still there, she's with me, so.
What a legacy for both of our mothers, but I think as a mom, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, wow, you made a decision, Jay, that's so rare, and Tim, you know this, for someone in a professional capacity to say, I'm gonna make a decision to be the last person to leave the room because that's what I can offer others, a safe place to reveal it and heal it. That's really powerful. That tells me a lot about your mom who raised you to have that. But when Jay and I were working together in South Carolina at Leeza's Care Connection, this man had been at the gym that day and had broken his hand. Like a weight fell on it or something, right?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Plays a full set at the event with a broken hand.
With the help of my guitars. Yeah.
No one would have known it. He was, and stayed, and was the last one to leave the building that night. That was pretty remarkable.
Oh.
Nothing's broken right now, he's fine.
Yeah, not on the outside.
There's that.
Final question for this episode for both of you. And I saw this happen. I've seen this happen to you, Leeza, and I saw this happen to you because I did this to you today, is when you tell your story, the other person has a story to share back. And you have been sharing those stories back yet again. Talk to us about when that happens, when someone comes to you with their story and tells you their story.
Yeah, well, with Leeza, I feel like I'm always the guy that's kind of holding people up, being a rock. And it's nice to have someone else do that for me. And I feel that with her. She reciprocates how I feel and has been through it before me, so, yeah.
I think when you meet people, as you do in your merch line and when you're dancing with them, there's a great need for people to feel in community and not alone, because this is one of the most depressing, isolating, difficult journeys that's relentlessly brutal, physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually. It causes people to deplete and just empty out. And when you can provide a space to share a story of recognition, that can nourish and begin to rebuild some of that strength that I think is so greatly needed. We always say that our philosophy at Leeza's Care Connection is you can hang on to yourself even while you're letting go of someone you love. And that's a very hard thing to do.
It is, yeah.
I think the focus on community, I've heard you both use that word. And Leeza, I met you as a complete stranger, and I jokingly have said, we were strangers for about 2 seconds.
That was a nanosecond, and done.
And I see the same dynamic between the two of you, and I think as the individuals that we have who watch at the forefront, there are a number of people who also belong to this community. So thank you for telling these stories.
These are our people, right? When you find your people, it's a hug.
Yeah, well, thanks for providing an outlet for us to share our stories.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for joining us for this episode of At the Forefront. We look forward to seeing you again as we continue our discussion with Leeza and Jay.